am overseeing the licensing part of our division, and it includes criminal background checks. And so we have heard from providers that it would be so good to have additional trainings on the system. And so I think, you guys, it's one of those things where it's new to us. And so the more times that we can listen, the more things that we learn. So we are happy to do another training on the criminal background check and central registry systems. And what we've done today for today's call is ask the experts to join us and for them to walk you through all of the steps in order to submit and initiate the criminal background checks and central registry checks, all the way up to getting a final approval for your applicants or your employees. We are recording this training today, and we're hopeful that we can put it up on our website and so that providers can refer back to it. So we do ask that you hold your questions till the end of the presentation so that we, as we're recording, we can get the steps very fluid, or as fluid as possible. So what we're going to do today is we will have Justin Foster with us to talk us through the NIC, formerly the INA system. And then we also have Misha Martin, who's going to talk us through the central registry portion of the background checks. So we're going to start today with Justin Foster, and he will talk us through how do you initiate a background check. So Justin, off with you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Give me 1 second. Put my phone on mute. Sorry about that. Let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay. So the first thing I want to start it off with today is the DHS website. So most of you are probably already familiar with this, but for those who aren't, the DHS website houses all the information that we're trying to put together for these providers. So on the right-hand side here, you'll notice that we have a background check button, and that's where we're going to be putting all the information related to this new process. So if you click on that, you can see the page has got quite a bit of information out here already, and we're continually trying to update it. So I won't step you through this, but there are steps to follow to submit a background check, and we're going to go through some of this today. I just wanted you aware that this is out there, and it will be updated as we come across new information to make it available to you guys. Okay, so we have a few different systems that I want to cover today. The first being the criminal background check system, which is the one I have on the screen now. And we will also be covering the scheduling tool. So we'll start with the background check system. So INA is a term you're probably most familiar with. They have changed to NIC, and I forget offhand what that stands for, but they've just gone to a new acronym. So if you hear us refer to INA or NIC, they're interchangeable for now. So forgive me if I jump back and forth. I'm trying to get used to the new name. So the first thing to do before you even get to this page is you have to sign up for a subscription account, which the majority of you have probably already done, but I wanted to go ahead and cover this process anyway for anybody who may be new on the call. INA has, or NIC has put together some instructions on how to go about this process, and we'll have this available after the call, and we're also going to be adding it to the web pages that I just showed you. But there's a pretty straightforward process going through the INA website to set up for a subscriber account. You have to give them some demographic information, some customer information, and this basically is how you are going to be able to go in and schedule, or not schedule, set up your own background check requests. So as I said, this information will be available on the website, hopefully later today or tomorrow, and we will also make this available after the call. So I don't want to read through all this with everybody on the phone, but okay. So assuming you have your subscription account set up, you get logged in. This is what the INA CBC system is going to look like. So you see across the top here, we've got 6 different tabs: home, search, pending, history, help, and contact us. So the home page is where you land. This is where once you log in, this is the page you're going to see. Now the tab that you're going to use most is going to be search. That's where you actually initiate the request for the background check. The pending is going to be the tab you go to see a list of everything that has not been adjudicated by the Division of Child Care yet. The history tab is where you will see those that have been adjudicated. The help tab is a bit of information about how to go through this process. One thing to keep in mind is that this is set up statewide, not just for DHS use, so some of this information may not be applicable to the Division of Child Care process. But if you ever have a quick question or forget a step, you can always click on the help tab, and there's quite a bit of information out here to step you through that process. And then there's the contact us page. This is specific to INA. They do leave some information here if ASP does need to be informed. I would recommend reaching out through the Division of Child Care if you have generic questions. If you have questions about your subscription account or your login information, here's the information for INA where they can assist you with that. So we're going to back up and we're going to go to the search tab, but I'm going to tab over here because I've already filled out some information. So this is where you begin doing a background check. So you fill out the information here. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, the date of birth, the social are critical pieces of information that have to be accurate. And I'll get into a little bit more on that once we get through this process. But the date of birth specifically and the name have to match what is on the driver's license of the person coming in to get fingerprinted. Our staff have been trained to verify the identity of anybody coming in, so we make sure we're fingerprinting the correct person. So if the information doesn't match, they will turn away the applicant and not be able to fingerprint them. So once you've filled out the demographic information at the top here, you do have to submit the consent form, which is also available on the website here. So you can go out and get that link to the consent form, which is, I believe it's this one. Yes. So this will generate a PDF for you. And this is basically some of the same information that you're going to be putting in on the CBC system. But this is actually the consent form that gives DHS the authority to run the background check for that person. So today I'm just going to use a test file. I'll just put this one out there. And this is for Division of Child Care, so you only have one radio option here. So you'll click this button. This is where the FBI information is required. So as much of this information as you have available, fill it out. Just go through here real quick and fill this out. Now this information here is optional. You can see that these fields have an asterisk, which means they are required for you to fill out information there. If you have this information, this is used in case we come across a record that doesn't have an exact match, and this helps them find that record more quickly. So once you've completed this page, it's best practice to go ahead and review the information you've put in, specifically the date of birth and the social security number and the name. But once you've completed that, we'll proceed to step 2. This is your confirmation page. This is where you review everything. This is your final chance to make sure that you've keyed everything correctly. And as you'll notice, we've added a statement down here at the request of ASP that no refunds will be provided for incorrect data entry. Because we have seen quite a lot of requests being keyed in with the wrong date of birth. We had one today that reached out to me that their name didn't match their driver's license. So that will have to be rekeyed with the correct information. Now, one thing to keep in mind is sometimes that information may not have a direct match. So, and I'm talking about in the ASP system. So as long as you're keying off of what their driver's license says, and the information here is accurate to the best of your knowledge, then ASP should be able to find a record on that person. Now, because this is testing information, of course, I put the name as Child Care Testing Care Facility. And you will notice we are able to put spaces in the name now. So if somebody has a 2-word last name, we can accommodate that. you will click Submit Search. Actually, let me take a screenshot of this because I'm going to have to send it to ASP for later. Once you click Submit Search, it will take a second to process. And what this is doing right now is sending the information to ASP. Now, if you get a direct match, say you put in someone who's worked for you for years or getting their check done, this page right here will not always show up. This page only comes up when the information you provided does not match anything in the ASP system. So this page is a second chance for you to fill in as much other information as you can provide to give ASP a chance to find that record using these other identifiers. So if you have this information, fill it out. If you don't, click Submit Information. What this does is sends it to research, which you'll notice here. I'm using an account that Felix set up for me for testing, but this would be your email address, and that's the email address that you're going to be registering with your subscription account, and that's where they will contact you when the research is complete. So when it goes to research, ASP has to manually review that record and find a match in their AFIS system, which is the Arkansas Fingerprint Identification System. Now, once this is complete, don't leave this page until you take a documentation of this. This number is critical. This is the transaction number that you will be required to use when we go over to the scheduling tool. I'm going to take a copy of that. And from this page, you can start another search once you've grabbed this information if you have multiple to do in the same day, but say that was the only one we had to do. You can notice that here on your pending tab, we now have a new record for the test record we just did today. It was done on child care facility, date of birth 01/01/1990, and it was submitted at this date and time. Now this search ID can be used to reference your record. If you have questions you need to call in, we can reach out to INA who can find out more information if we need to. But if at all possible, grab that transaction ID and save it to that request. So once we've done that, you're going to hop over to the scheduling tool. Let me find where I have that. Oh, it's hidden behind my Zoom bar. There we go. And we're going to make an appointment. So you'll click on fingerprinting because that's what we're making an appointment for. You'll find your local area and select a location. And then we're going to choose a date and time. Now you'll notice that some of these are grayed out. That means these appointments are not available. And you'll notice that we can't choose today. And the reason for that is we block off the next 4 hours. So you can't schedule for the next 4 hours of time. So if it were 8 a.m. in the morning, everything from 12 a.m. back would be grayed out and not be able to be selected. But you can see here that we do have some times available. Now these will be grayed out. Typically 12 to 1 is the lunch hour, so that will typically always be grayed out. We do have a couple locations that use 11 to 12. But any of the others that are grayed out are appointments that already exist. So I'm just going to choose one for next Friday just so I can get a few free times. You'll click on the time you're interested in. And now we're going to put in the same information that we just put in on the CBC system. It doesn't look like it's allowing spaces in there, but then I'll put in my email address. And then the transaction ID, which was CHI 0023671. Now you have an option here to receive text messages. If the phone number you put in up here is a cell phone, you can check this box to receive your confirmation at not only at the phone number you listed, but at the email as well. I'll leave that off right now because I did put in a false number. And here's your confirmation page. Now, one thing that people are getting confused with is this confirmation number. This is not what you use when you show up to get your fingerprinting done. This is just a confirmation number for the scheduling tool only. We typically don't see issues with the scheduling tool, but this number would allow us to look up this specific appointment. So typically you don't need this number. The transaction ID, again, is the most critical piece. So this is what you can do is you can print this page out. It gives you some information, gives you the location address that you can put into your GPS if you're unfamiliar with the area, and the information on the person getting fingerprinted. You can cancel the appointment from here. You can go back and edit the date and time from here. Now, one thing, let me pull up my email. I will show you what that confirmation looks like. So here's the email that you would receive in regards to the appointment. It shows who you scheduled it for. Again, the confirmation number, which is not critically important, but this number right here. I know this still says search ID. We're working to transfer all that over to the word transaction, so we're all uniform across the board. It shows the appointment location, the address, and the date and time that you're scheduled for. Now, this email is also important with this link right here. If you need to edit or cancel the appointment, this link is how you do it. So if I wanted to go in and make a change to that appointment, that link will take me directly back to this page I was just on, and I can make an edit and say I wanted to go, I can't go next Friday, I'll go the Friday after, and I'll change it to 9 a.m. and now I'm rescheduled for the 18th. It's that quick and easy. Now again, just to reiterate, the information you provide, the name, the date of birth, have to match what we pull up in the system, or you may get record not found. As in the example from today, if the driver's license doesn't match the name they're providing, we will have to turn them away for failure to be able to identify them. Go back to my, okay. Now, because this is a test account, I don't have the ability to see anything in the history, but say we were able to go in and look at this information. You get a search field. For the bigger facilities, this is going to be very handy. You can do it between a date and time. You can search for specific last names to pull up a certain individual. But because this is a test account, there aren't any records. But I did have a couple of examples sent to me as to what these will look like from the provider side. So I know a couple of questions we've had in the past have been related to how do we tell if someone is able to be alone with children. So Division of Child Care uses what we call a provisional status. And this means that at least one, and Ashlyn, correct me if I'm wrong here, that means at least the state or the FBI has come back cleared. And now once we go in and adjudicate either one of those, that will change this overall status to provisional. Once we have received the state, federal, and maltreatment check, pending any out-of-state that may be outstanding, we go in and adjudicate those records, and then we can flag it over to a denied status, which I didn't get a screenshot of, but it would just say denied here, or approved. And the approved status is where they can be alone with children. So this area right here that I have, this red circle is just from that I've put in, but so this area right here is what you want to look at in regards to whether or not someone can be alone with children. Provisional, they have to have supervision. Approved means they can be alone. So on this informational page, this does tell you when the check was requested, when it was completed, along with the demographic information. We have the amount that was charged for that fingerprinting, and this one actually says fingerprint pending. I'm not sure why. Because
hey, Justin?
Yes.
I don't think that we're seeing the correct screen. What we're seeing right now is just the blank search history.
Really? I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Now we can. Thank you.
I didn't realize it wasn't switching between my Chrome and Word. So again, I'll just go over this again really quickly. So we have a provisional status and approved status, and there's also a denied. But this overall check here in the bottom right is what you want to look at, ignoring the red circle that I've just put there to highlight that. This is where you can tell if someone can be alone with the children. So again, we have the time the fingerprint was, or the record was requested, when it was completed, demographic information, the amount of the charge. The view attached documents only lets you see the consent form. We have to have that for auditing purposes, but this is basically what a full record would look like once it's been completed. It would either show approved or denied for those that are totally done, and those that are still in process, whether it be for the maltreatment or the FBI, because those are the ones that typically take longer than the state. Those would show provisional once it's been adjudicated by DHS. Go back to Chrome here. Okay. Let's see. All right. That's a quick down and dirty of the process. Do we have any questions in regards to any of the things I've shown today?
I'm sorry, I had a phone call earlier. Whenever they are approved for the FBI, will there be a document I can download?
I'm sorry, will you mute your speakers while we're getting a little bit of feedback while you're talking.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. My coworker is also listening beside me. Whenever the FBI's, they get approved and we get the approval, will there be a document to download in order, like, to keep for our records?
Oh, are you referring to the actual results?
Yes.
No, that will not be available to the provider.
Okay.
This system will allow.
Can I ask why it's not available? Because for HR and personnel purposes, as a child care facility, we are required to have that available for licensing purposes if we are to be audited. Because right now I'm having to literally copy and paste where it says approved or provisional and create my own, which is very inconvenient when you have 200 plus employees. So is that something they're thinking about putting into place, or?
Ashlyn, you want to take that one?
So I have not heard of any talks of it being added into the NIC system. What we can do for licensing, the licensing specialist can look at your system. So if you want to if they were doing a records check at your facility, let's say, you can pull up your system for them and show it to them if that would be helpful, so that you're not trying to create a secondary way or means of storing that information. Because the bottom line, they're just going to need, the specialist is just going to need to see that there is an approved status, an overall approved status. I think maybe the
something that needs to be in their file, each employee's file?
As long as you, so Taylor, it's different facilities handle their paperwork different ways. And so there's might be some of you on the call today and you do paper copies and that's what you want to do. And that's perfectly fine. So couch that with my answer I'm about to give you. As long as the facility or home provider can show that they have run the background check and that it's complete and it's been approved, then you will be just fine. So you don't have to have an actual piece of paper in a paper file. We have a lot of facilities that do electronic file systems.
Yeah.
However, it is best fitting for your particular facility. That will be good. Bottom line is you just need to be able to show a licensing specialist that it was completed and that you've got the overall approved status.
And also, whenever we have therapists that are not allowed to come in and see children without us having an approved, and so those are approvals that would be done through their facility, so I wouldn't have access to those.
So in terms of therapists that are traveling in and out, Sandra, what we need to do is that therapist needs to provide you a copy that they have been cleared. It could be from a different facility that they've traveled with, because some of them, you know, see multiple facilities. So to us, the bottom line is that they ran it under one of those licensed facilities that they go see. And so we've instructed them to take that paper with them to each one of the facilities that they have, to provide for you guys that they have been through the background check.
I have a question. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, there's been some confusion after I go and input all of the person's information on the website, the database and everything. Then they go to they make their appointment, go to get their fingerprints done. There's been some confusion about the number, that it needs to have like a CHI 000 before it, and that the number that I have for them to give to them is not matching up.
So again, that's where I was saying the transaction ID is absolutely critical that you grab that while you're doing the transaction.
Okay, show me again where I find that.
So there's, give me 1 second, I'll have to go back and do another quick search here.
Hey, Becky, while he's doing that, can you sort through our chat box to see if there are any questions in there? And just to let you guys know, I see many of you are putting in your PDR number. This particular training was not set up in the PDR. So we do not need your PDR numbers for this particular training.
I have a question. So the only time that I have gotten the NIC page to change from provisional to approved is when I contact the central registry, and I have to get someone to give me their email, and then I scan and email approved child maltreatment checks to them, and then they go in and manually change the result to approved.
I've had this also happen often.
Yes, and I had it happen to me this morning with like 9 employees.
Yes.
They're not updating it frequently until they are contacted.
Okay, so what should happen there is so when a provider, and Michelle will talk about this in a second too, but so the central registry is a separate system than the NIC system. However, with that said, we have to have the central registry information in order to go back into the NIC system to give an overall approved status. So what happens now, central registry has gone electronic. I think maybe I saw a question flash through here, so Michelle will talk to you about that in a minute. That's very exciting for us because it should speed up our process. But what happens now is providers will be notified, and then my team or Nora's team will be notified that the central registry results have come back. And so then that's when then Nora's team can go in and change that status to an overall approved status. So that's what should be happening. I would say to you, if you're still doing that process where you're having to contact the central registry yourself and then contact someone on Nora's team, then I would say reach out to Nora and let her know. And Nora, I saw you on the call, so if you'll put your email address, please, in the chat box, and or anybody, Nora, on your team that you want to help field those questions. Let's email and check on that part because we should be getting notified at the same time you guys are notified. Now, please understand, we are statewide. We're handling the criminal background checks statewide for all providers. And I know we have a mix of providers on the call today. So we have childcare providers, but we also have placement residential providers. So that's a lot of volume, you guys. And just like you, we also are experiencing our own employees being out and back with COVID-related things. So we need a little bit of time and your patience and grace, please, but we will get to you. So we'll check on that. Let me just check on that and see what is what's going on there, happening there. And I'm sure Nora will probably already do it because she's hearing the same thing as me. Looks like
Hey,
Justin.
Ebony. Yep, Ashley, I've got a couple questions from the chat box. If you want me to go through those now, or do we want to wait just a little bit?
Well, actually, Becky, I don't want us to get too far away from the original question that Justin has pulled up and
Okay.
so let's handle that one first, and then we'll go to the chat box. Okay, Justin, looks like you're ready.
Yes, so again, on this page where you confirm, this is your last attempt to go back to step one and make any changes to your information. Assuming everything is correct, we'll click Submit Search. We're again going to see the research page where they ask for additional information because this is obviously not a real person. So if you have this information, complete it. Now this is the page that is critical. This is the page that I would print out and put with your employee file. This has the transaction ID right here at the bottom. And this is the number that has to go in the scheduling tool. It begins with CHI for anything childcare related. We do have other prefixes that are available through DHS, but for your purposes, generally CHI is what you will use. And you can typically add CHI 00 to the beginning of your search ID. These are interchangeable numbers. So if you only operate a childcare facility, this prefix is what will be in front of every search ID. So again, on the history tab, if you go and look someone up, all you see is the search ID. You can add CHI 00 in front of that, and that will get you the full transaction number. Does that answer the question?
Miss Abney?
Justin, I think that does. Thank you for that explanation. And you guys, I think maybe it's best to do it this way because I'm looking at our time too, and I want to make sure that we get through the central registry portion. So let's go ahead and move to Misha on the central registry portion and put your questions in the chat box, and we will get to them. We will. I'll hang out with you and make sure that we're answering them, but let's move on to Misha so that we don't miss her. Okay, Misha, off to you.
Great, thank you. Ashlyn, can you just confirm real fast that you're seeing the central registry presentation on your screen?
Yes, ma'am, I see it.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Misha Martin. I'm the Director of Children and Family Services. Many of you may have seen this presentation before. It is the same presentation again, but we just felt like we'll catch a few new people, but also the people who had not used the system yet and are now using it might see this presentation and spark some questions or need to provide me with some feedback. Again, at the Division of Children and Family Services, we do have the Child Maltreatment Central Registry. So completely separate from a criminal background check. This is where there's a true finding of some maltreatment based on an investigation of Children and Family Services, and the offender's name has been put on that central registry. We have gone to an electronic process completely. Many of you back for several months have been using our form generator, which is now an electronic form where you can type it in and print it off. But I'm going to walk you through both processes using the new form and doing an electronic submission. Again, this is a very new process for us. So you guys have already given some feedback that we've taken back and implemented. I'm sure there'll probably be feedback today. And just like Ashlyn had mentioned with her team, we're having to completely redo our process with our staff. So reassigning staff, working through some of the challenges with the new system as well. So I appreciate your patience as you work with us. So getting into the new process. Again, this is going to be a two-step process. So we're really encouraging everyone to use our new form. I'm going to stop for a second and back up just a little bit and show you where you can find it on the website, because it's going to be very similar to what Justin showed you. You're going to go to the same website. You're going to go to our DHS website. Let me show you. You're going to click the same background check, and then you see the link here for our central registry check. So click this link, and Ashlyn, it went to a new tab. So you see the request for a central registry? Okay, just want to make sure since it went to a new tab. You'll see full instructions, and Ashlyn will share, or someone on Ashlyn's team will share the PowerPoint that I'm giving today, and there are live links in the PowerPoint that you can click. But the easiest way is just to go to the DHS website and follow the links, and there's detailed instructions about what I'm going over today that you, hopefully you maybe have two screens, and as you're doing this process for the first time, you have this on one screen while you're walking through the process, because we go step by step and showing you how to do the central registry request. Before I get too far into the presentation, you can still submit a snail mail request. It's going to be slower. So I'm going to try and convince you to do an electronic process, but you can still do a snail mail request. I do ask that you use our new form generator, which is the first step in the process in which I'm going to go through. So let me get back to my PowerPoint. Give me just one second. Okay, so back to the PowerPoint. So again, I want to tell you on the benefits of why this is much better than snail mail. You're going to have the electronic form generator that I'm going to show you how to use. It's mobile friendly. So if you're just using an iPhone, or if your employee wants to fill this out on their iPhone or their smartphone, it's easy to use. In fact, I think it's easier to use on a smartphone than it is on a computer. It reduces us having to send the form back. That happens quite a bit when employees snail mail a form in. They don't fill out all the mandatory fields and we have to send it back. A lot of times we send it back via snail mail, which is also a delay in the process. It ensures that the mandatory fields are filled out. So you'll see as we walk through it, if there's a mandatory requirement for information, you cannot create the form without filling out that information. It also helps us with knowing what you're putting in the form. We get a lot of forms that we cannot read your handwriting. We cannot read the date of birth. We cannot read your name, which also can lead to misinformation. We've had it happen before where we misinterpreted a form, told you they weren't on the central registry, and come to find out they were on the central registry, but it was a misinterpretation of the letters on the form. Also, with the electronic submission, you're going to be able to pay online. So it does take a credit card or a e-check, but you can pay online, which I think is amazing. And the best benefit of all is, especially as we move to more electronic submissions, you're going to get faster results. So you're going to get faster results because you didn't wait to snail mail it in. And we didn't snail mail you or DCC ECE or childcare the results. So the results should be coming back much faster. We've had a few hiccups in the first week, but we're getting there. And some of you, I think, have probably already seen the faster results on the electronic submission. So again, this is a two-step process, and I really want us to think about it in two different ways: creating a form and then electronically submitting that form. Two different steps and two different processes that I'll walk through today. So as you're following on the DHS website, Child Maltreatment, it will give you the link to create the form. Once you go to that page to create the form, it looks like this. It is very important that you select the right radio button. And you know what, I'm just going to go back to the website because I want you to see the actual website. So right here, we're going to click here to create a form. This is very important for you as a provider or as the employee that you select.
Hey, Michelle, we can't
Oh,
see
it's
it.
not. Okay, let me share. Let me try again. Thank you for telling me. Okay. Because there's a long list of you are, and don't try and circumvent the system and pick the wrong radio button by going down here to none of the above. It's very important that you, as a child care provider, or if we have some PRLU providers on, you either pick number 2, you are a potential or current employee of a child care facility or residential facility. That's very important because what that means is when you click this button, what has to be input down below is the information that's needed for licensure and to make sure that we at Children and Family Services get the result back to the right people. If the correct radio button is selected, then we can make sure that it goes not only to the facility, but also to DCC ECE. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, give me just 1 second. Okay, I'm going to do a test form here. Also the cool thing about this form generator is that it kind of it remembers what you previously typed. Now I'm going to give you a little pointer. You and the potential employee can sit at a computer and fill this out together, or you can send your employee on their own and say, here's the link, go fill it out, but they're going to need some information. Notice that the asterisk means it's required information. So if you send your potential or current employee away to fill out this form, they're going to need a facility email address. So they're going to need to know who at the facility is going to get this check. And I'm not, you know what, I'm not going to fill out. See, some of these are not mandatory, and so used to on the form, you would see all this information, but in working closely with DCC ECE, we determined that that information is not required. They do need the facility number. Ashlyn, do you want to chime in and tell them what a facility number is? I know that's always a question. What is the facility number?
Right, so when you guys were licensed, you were given a facility number. It's the same, sometimes, many times it's license number. So that would be the number that is on your actual licensing certificate. If you don't know what your license number is, your licensing specialist will be able to help you get that number. So you should have it on some of your records, but if you don't, contact your licensing specialist and they will be able to help you.
Okay, then, so I hope that as Ashlyn was talking, you also could see that I was continuing to fill out the form. Now, this is actually has changed since the first presentation I gave based on feedback that we've gotten, which is people wanted the ability to not only have the form that's about to be generated sent to the potential or current employee, but potentially sent to the facility, like the HR person who's sitting next to that employee, so that now, and not required, you can put a second email address in here where whatever email addresses are right here, this email address or this email address, they're going to get the auto-generated form, because this is about to create a form if you haven't seen this before. Now, again, I filled out forms before, so it remembers the information I put, which is pretty cool. I'm going to say no additional addresses, but if an employee lived in additional addresses, they would select, and then they would get a drop down to add all those additional addresses. If I said, do you need to list any children? If I said yes there, that we have made changes to the form, you can now list up to 12 children, and you can follow, but I'm going to say no to try and keep this simple. And I'm going to hit submit form. Okay, you need to make sure that the info, if not all of the mandatory information is filled out, it won't let me hit submit. But it's going to let me hit submit because, oh, no, it didn't. I didn't put my last name. So I got to go back in here and put my last name, and now I'm going to hit submit. See, that was a great demo as far as showing what the system does. When I hit submit form, it is emailing 1 or 2 email addresses that I just put in. And now I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to show you an example. Okay. Back to sharing PowerPoint, right? Ashlyn, give me a nod. Yes, great. Okay. So this is the email that you will get with the form. The email gives you instructions of what to do next, but it also has a PDF attachment. The PDF attachment, this is just an example of what the PDF attachment will look like. It's important that you then print off this form and notarize it because the law requires that the form is notarized. So the form has to be printed and notarized. So that after the form is printed and notarized, you have completed step 1. And really step 1 is just completing the form. And then we're going to get into what do you do once you've completed the form and you have a paper copy? You're going to if you'd like to submit it electronically, which we hope and hope we can encourage and entice you to do, you could go back, I'll stop sharing, and you could go back to that DHS page. Let me share with you. Go back to your DHS page where you're doing electronic background checks and you're on Central Registry. We did step 1 right here of here's creating the form, and then we're on to step 2, and it says B, click here. And again, if you have the PowerPoint, the links are live in my PowerPoint. It takes you to where you're going to submit the form electronically. You will see the same options that you saw on creating a form. Again, it is very important that if you are a child care facility or other residential facility, and I would recommend that at this point when you're electronically submitting the form, I would recommend that the facility do that. But it's up to you and your process, whether you do it or whether the employee does it. Depends on who's paying and what you decide to do on that end. But you're going to need to click the second radio button. You are a potential or current employee of a child care facility. You will then need to fill out the additional fields. Not as many fields as was on the form, but this is the point where we start tracking that form. We know at DCFS from the minute that you submit it to the minute you get it back, we have it tracked in the system. So if you feel like a form is lost, we know exactly where it is. We can track you by facility number. We can track you by applicant number. We can find your form, and not only can we track it, we have partnered with DCC ECE to give them the ability to track and know what's happening with the central registry forms. So you'll fill out the additional information here. What's very important is you'll choose this notarized request form, choose file, and you'll need to upload the form. What's really cool about this system is, and what we figured out, is that you can actually use an iPhone to do this. So you can take a picture of the form, and if you're using your iPhone to submit this request, which again, this website is mobile friendly as well as the electronic payment, you can just take a picture and choose it from your photo library. So you don't have to have a fancy scanner. Now, I do like the Genius app, which is free. I think it does a better job. So you can use the Genius scanner on your iPhone or smartphone. So there's several free options for scanning on a smartphone that you don't have to invest in a scanner if you don't want to. Now, let me see here. I'm back on the PowerPoint, aren't I, Ashley, and all this back and forth. Okay. We're gonna kind of skip forward. I have these. Payment. If you have to pay, the system knows based on the radio buttons that you select whether you have to pay or not. You have to, the employee or the facility has to pay unless you are a nonprofit organization or the potential employee is indigent. If you currently had recognition of a nonprofit organization, we worked with the new system development, and those providers are already in the system and are recognized as nonprofit organizations. If you are not, the employee or whoever is doing the electronic upload will have to choose other and add your facility to the list. But if you are not a nonprofit or the employee or current employee is not indigent, you will be directed to pay, and it goes to a different website, but you can see this right here. And it's very standard to Amazon or PayPal or otherwise. It's a step-by-step process of the registry check is $10. The fee for asking for it to be done electronically is an additional $1. So the total is $11, which I'm super pumped about. It costs 41 cents to mail. So it's really not much more to do an electronic process, and the results should be much faster than previously. Once you do the payment and hit submit, you will receive another email confirming that the form and electronic submission has happened. It will include this ID number. This is very important, okay? Because if you want to call DCFS or you want to call DCC ECE and you want to check on a form, the best way to do it, though we can look it up different ways, but the best way to do it is this ID number. If for some reason we reject you, like this has already happened, you don't upload the form. You upload something, but it's not the form. And then what my unit is going to do is they're going to reject it. You're going to want to know that because you're not going to have to start all over, but you're going to reference this number on resubmission, and then you're going to upload the right form. If you upload the form, I mean, basically it's just been, you're not uploading the right form, or you're not uploading the pages, or you didn't make sure it was notarized. But if you follow the steps and you do everything you want to do, you won't get rejected. But if you do get rejected, you don't have to start from scratch. You use this ID number. You put the ID number under, is this a resubmission? And you upload the correct form. But this is your confirmation email that you receive. Once the central registry request has been processed, the result will come electronically via email. If you are still snail mailing and not giving us an email address because of the volume that we continue to receive via snail mail, you are still going to receive it back snail mail. At some point, we are going to end that. We are in a transition period. And so we are still snail mailing some results back, but that will end. So we really encourage you to get used to this system. And while it may seem like a lot, we want your feedback, and hopefully you can use the technology and convert to this new system. So if you submit electronically, or if you snail mail and include an email address, you will get the results back via email address on an email that looks just like this. If you saw on the previous page, there was an email with a PDF. That PDF attachment is a letter, an official letter that looks like this that you're seeing on the PowerPoint with the results that you will get. Here's some helpful contacts for the Central Registry if you have questions. Again, this presentation is going to be recorded and we're happy to share the presentation, but the website has a detailed step-by-step instruction. So I feel like that's actually better than this PowerPoint and walking step-by-step to do the Central Registry process. Okay, and that's it for me. Ashlyn, I'm sure I have questions, and I'm more than happy to hear questions or feedback when you tell me it's time.
Thank you, Misha. We really appreciate you. Okay, Becky, I think you've been monitoring our chat box, so
I
let's
sure have.
see if we can tackle questions.
All right, so we've had a few questions just regarding about payment, and I think this is more specifically when we're looking at the state police and the FBI. So how do they make those payments?
Okay, so when you sign up for your INA subscription, you will have, or NIC, sorry you guys, you will have an NIC account. Once you have that account, you will be billed, you will be invoiced for your account, your subscription fee, which is $150. And Becky, remind me, I'll go back and talk about that in a second if I forget. It's $150. We are currently working with NIC to see if there can be some different payment processes, but right now it's $150 for the subscription. And then you also you will be paying the actual criminal checks fee itself. My understanding is, and Justin, you tell me if I'm wrong, but all of that will be invoiced to you guys every month. You should get a bill from NIC that will tell you how much you owe for that particular month.
That's correct.
Okay.
As
Now-
long as they've used an email address they have access to, they should get that email to them every month, yes.
Okay, good deal. Now then, there's a mix of providers on the phone call today, so I want you to listen real close to me. Some of you are child care providers, child care licensed, like your typical child care centers that we think about. Some of you all are placement residential providers. So for the child care providers only, because some of the funding comes from our federal partners, DCC ECE is paying for the $150 subscription fee one time only. And that's only for child care providers, because some of that, like I said, some of that is federal money.
Can I pause right there and just do a Yahoo? That is great news.
Yes. So if you're our child care provider, you will need to send in, and somebody on my team on the call, please put in that email address in the chat box. I think it's INA receipts at dhs.arkansas.gov, but watch for it in the chat box. You will need to send your invoice showing the $150. It needs to be that particular invoice where you paid it. That needs to come to an email address, and then you'll be reimbursed. Again, only one time for that. That's how you do payment for NIC. So you'll get that in the email address that you set up. You'll get your invoice once a month to that email address. And then Misha just showed us her payment for the Central Registry fee. You will do that right in the system as you're walking through the steps. You'll pay at that time when you're initiating the request. All right, Becky?
All right, so another question that we had was just kind of a clarification on what does provisional mean? So I think going through pending, provisional, approved, not approved, what does that really mean?
Okay, so listen closely again, because this is going to be different for you guys. Because the regulations are a little bit different. So I wanted to just say to you, refer to your minimum licensing requirements. That's going to be your very best bet. So whatever you have been previously required to do in terms of background checks, in terms of supervision of employees, in terms of which criminal checks or maltreatment checks you have to get, none of that has changed. So just refer to your minimum licensing requirements in terms of what checks you need to take. On the surface though, for childcare providers, you guys, when you get a provisional, that means your employees can go to work with supervision. So you'll see a provisional means that a criminal check has come back. Usually it is going to be the Arkansas State Police that comes back first, because they're usually first. So when Nora's team gets one back, then she and her team will flip the status to provisional, meaning for childcare that they can go to work with supervision. For placement residential, this would not apply to you guys, the bulk of you guys, because you have to have, most of you, although there's some differences just even within the placement residential, most of you have to have all three back. So again, whatever you had to have already currently before NIA or our IMA, NIC was even a thing, that's what you still have to have. Now then, when you get the overall approved status, and this is true for all of you, when you get the overall approved status, that means that all the background checks that you needed are back. Okay, so when you get the approved status, thank you, Justin. When you see that, that means all of the checks that you needed are back. One other thing that I want to remind you, because I think I saw it in the chat box, Becky, was about out-of-state maltreatment. So if you're hiring somebody from out of state, then that is going to take a little bit longer time, because Nora and her team have to wait on a response for whatever that state is. If it's Hawaii, Oklahoma, Texas, whoever it is, Nora's team has to hold up on giving an approved status until all the out-of-state criminal or maltreatment checks have been received too. So sometimes we'll talk to providers and there's been a little lag of time, and it is because we're waiting on something from out of state. So that's just a general overview of those different statuses that you might see in your account. Pending means that nothing, that means you've sent it and they're being worked on, but nothing has come back yet. So really the ones you want to pay attention to is provisional and approved.
All right, there was just another question just to kind of verify about getting those forms notarized. So can you just let us know, do they need to be notarized, the forms?
Yes, everything has to be notarized. That is true for the NIC system. So for your state and FBI requests, those have to be notarized, and also for central registry, those forms have to be notarized.
All right, we also had another question. Justin, you had mentioned entering in the driver's license number. So they just wanted some clarification. Do we need to enter in the current address or what's on the driver's license?
Well, we don't verify the address. We verify the name on the driver's license. So the name and date of birth on the driver's license needs to match what's being provided to the operator at the DHS county office.
All right, another one of our
Wait,
questions.
hold on one sec. I'm sorry, guys, to interrupt. I really have to go in a minute, but so I'm willing to take a couple of questions for Central Registry, if that's okay. I mean, I hate to interrupt, but I have to go in just a minute.
That's okay. Becky, would you look on down through the list real quick and see if there was central registry specific?
Sure can. This one right here kind of has to do a little with Central Registry. It says if someone has already done a child maltreatment check within a year, and now they have to do a background check, do they have to do another maltreatment?
That's actually a licensing question. I know the answer, but that's not actually a question for me. Ashlyn, does your team want to answer that?
So they've already, you said they've already done a, read it one more time, 'cause I wasn't, read it one more time, Becky.
Sorry guys there. If someone has already done a child maltreatment check within a year and now they have to do a background check, do they do another child maltreatment?
No, the maltreatment goes by the regulation. So the regulation, whatever the regulation says, so like for instance, for childcare, you have to get that one done every 2 years. So you would still do that every 2 years.
So Ashlyn, I did see a quick question about what if my provider name is not in the list on the upload. So I thought I would answer that one really quickly. And hopefully you see my share. So some facilities are already in here. So like you could A1 is already in there. But if your facility is not in there, you have to select other. And then once you select other, you list your childcare facility. Like it just remembered little kids because that was my example. So you'll list. Now, if you are a nonprofit and you're not in this list, you're going to need to reach out to Central Registry. Now, when you're uploading the form, you can always upload proof that you're a nonprofit. But if you are wanting to be in this drop down every time because you're a nonprofit, you can reach out to Central Registry and provide them proof that you're a 501c3. I saw one other question related to early childcare providers and whether they're nonprofits. If your tax ID is a 501c3, then you are a nonprofit and you can provide proof of that to the Central Registry. If it is not, then you are not a nonprofit and you will be asked to pay for the registry check.
Thank you, Michelle. I know you need to get to your next meeting.
do.
So we'll
Thanks, Ashley.
answer questions. If we can't, I'll tag in with you and we'll get the answers back to the provider. So I appreciate your time so much.
Great. Thank you, Ashlyn. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Justin, I believe you also have another meeting coming up. So I appreciate your time with us too. If you can hang out with us, that would be great. But if you can't and we can't answer the question, then I'll tag in with you.
Yeah, I'll stay around.
Okay, good deal. All right, Becky, what's up next?
All right, I'm kind of navigating through this one here. It says, I was told by DHS that each individual employee has to have their own login name and password. I then asked what happened when we get to the maximum number of logins, which is 10. What do we do then?
Okay, so each person does not have to have their own. And generally what is happening is it'll be either the owner and the director that will have passwords, usernames and passwords. But however you want your facility to have that set up, it absolutely is up to you. Sometimes you guys that are in these bigger facilities that have multiple facilities that are more than 10, what I've heard is that they will just identify 2 or 3 people that might be regionally like close together. That would help. But however you want to sort that out, you can. So the answer, the bottom line answer is on an NIC subscription, you can have up to 10 users that would have access into that account. And I suppose the answer would be if you needed more than 10 for some reason, Justin, I'm assuming they would have to get another INA subscription for that?
Yeah, I haven't come across anybody who actually needed 10. I think that may be a little bit of a misunderstanding. As you said, it only needs to be those that are involved directly with the submission of the background checks. But if we do have larger facilities that need more than 10, I would need to reach out to INA and find out if we can accommodate it. That's likely a restriction on their website.
Okay.
This next question is about public school systems that have those preschool classes. So I work for a public school system that also has preschool classes, and all our employees must pass the same requirements of background checks, fingerprints, etc. Having said all that, do they have to go through the DHS system or just have proof in their files that they've got the checks done?
Okay, they do have to go through the DHS system. And here's the reason why, you guys. The prohibitive offenses from the Arkansas Department of Ed are different than prohibitive offenses for child care licensing, according to the Child Care Licensing Act. So we do need to make sure that if you're in a setting where you have a preschool housed in a school system, that you're still running the checks through the child care side as well.
Our next one here, I know that we've covered it a little bit, but I think it's worth just kind of restating again. They're talking about how they're a church operated and exempt facility. And they're just wanting to know, like they're saying that we're only paying for FBI, which is correct, and not the criminal maltreatment. They're wondering if that will remain the same with the new automated system.
Okay, so again, because there's different providers, this will be different for you guys. If you're childcare, then you've always had to pay for your FBI and your central registry, whereas the division picked up the state criminal fee. You've never had to pay that one. For placement residential, you guys have always paid all of your fees. And again, that goes back to federal funding. And so whatever you've had to pay for in the past is what you pay for now. I think I did see a question fly by, so I'll go ahead and take that one now if I remember right. Somebody was saying we used to be considered nonprofit and now we're not considered nonprofit anymore. You guys, when we went to the new system, we had clarification from different people, from like our legal clarification, from school systems, so on and so forth, that schools are actually, even though they're public schools, they are not nonprofit. And so that's what Misha was talking to you about. Like, you will need to have your nonprofit status paperwork available. That's how, when you provide that, you will not be charged the $10 for central registry. So outside of that group, everybody else should be whatever you've been. Like if you've been nonprofit, you've never paid for the central registry. If you're childcare, you've never paid for the criminal. If you're placement residential, you've always paid for all. So whatever you've paid for in the past is what you pay for now.
All right, Justin, this one is probably one for you because it's a security question. When we need to email the scan and scan the emails are not encrypted and we are sending vital information on the internet, what safety precautions are being taken?
I don't know that I follow that question. What are we emailing?
I believe that these would be those forms, just that they're going via email to people when they submit their form.
If we're talking about the consent form, then
That would be correct.
The tool we're using to generate that is uses encrypted information. So even only the admins are able to go in and see what has been submitted, and I don't even think they can see the data behind it. So the form itself is encrypted. Now what they do with the PDF that they print off, we can't really control that aspect, but everything up until the point of receiving that email with the PDF is encrypted.
All right. We've got, this one is, I have an instance where I submitted the information but did not get a transaction number. Can you just share, like, who would they contact in those specific cases where they didn't get the information that they needed? That would be Nora Fawcett.
You got it, Becky.
All right.
If you're having any kind of weird anomalies that you think that, like, you're working in the system and the system's working fine, but something weird happens like that where you're not getting a transaction number, your very best bet would be Nora and her team, because if they can't answer it, then they'll shoot it out to Justin and his team or whomever to try to figure out what's going on. Now then, if you're having trouble with just your account in and of itself, that would be NIC, that you would, it was under that help tab that Justin showed us. You can get the contact information there if you're having trouble with the system itself.
All right, our next one is, what number do we take when we go to get our fingerprints done? So what do we take to the fingerprint appointment?
So again, you take the number that Justin showed us that starts with CHI. It's usually CHI or it could be CHW if you're over on placement residential side, but it'll be letters, C and some letters, and then like a series of zeros usually, and then a number. So it is the transaction number that you need to take.
All right, I'm still scrolling through these questions. If you guys see any there where you're doing it, 'cause I know a lot of them have been answered already.
I
Okay,
do see one.
Oh, go ahead,
Sorry.
Justin.
I was just going to say, I see one asking to show where to see the history again. So I'm going to pull back up so we can find
Okay.
the right screen to show.
Okay, thank you. And while you're doing that, I have seen a couple that have talked about wanting the PowerPoint. So you guys, the PowerPoint is already on our website. So if you will just Google Arkansas DHS, it'll take you to the landing page that Justin showed us earlier. And then if you'll go to child care licensing, all of this information is on there. The PowerPoint is already up. Also has COVID updates and that kind of thing. So it is a website page that I highly recommend to all the providers that I talk to, that you go ahead and star that page as one of your favorites so that you can get to it quickly. All right, Justin, I see you've got that up again.
Yeah, and I'm not able to show you how the page looks exactly because this, like I said, this is a test account. But on the history tab, if you have a specific entry you're looking for, sorry, I heard someone talking. Then you can search by that name. You can search for it by date range. If you know you want to look at who you've done, for this calendar year, you could put in, 01/01/2020 to now, and it would search everything done in that date range. You can also look up specific search ID. So again, on the transaction ID, you would drop the CHI00 and just put in the rest of the numbers, which would be the search ID, or you can look it up by SSN. Now again, unfortunately, actually there are some out here, so this is good. This is what the history page would look like. So again, you can see the overall check right here is what you want to be looking for. This one's still pending, which means no adjudication has been done on it. This is the one, this was done back in August, so this is just another test account that we sent through. But you can see here, this one has been marked as approved. This one here is marked as provisional. And this is what the information that you need to look for when determining whether someone can be alone with the children or unsupervised.
Hey, Justin, here's the question. And you know what? I'm not sure I know the answer myself is, how long is a transaction number good for?
As far as I know, it's an indeterminate amount of time right now.
Okay.
We haven't nailed that down. We had talked about putting a limitation on that, but there are, I know if in Mish's shop, for example, there's usually a lag between when they need to get the fingerprint done and when they actually go to get it done. So right now, I don't know of a limitation, but again, as soon as you get the transaction ID, you've already paid for it, so you might as well have someone go and get the fingerprints done.
Get it finished. Okay, and then we went over the provisional. We talked about provisional for each of the, oops, my chat box moved. Excuse me. We went over the different titles for provisional and approved. And remember that will vary depending on what type of provider you are. But provisional for childcare means that you can employ that person with supervision for placement residential most of the time, and most of your license types. Provisional is going to mean that you have some back, but you're still holding, waiting for the approval, the overall approval. We are going to, I heard Justin say, we are going to put up to the website shortly how you actually go in and set up the NIC subscription in and of itself. That will be coming soon. Guys, I'm going quick here because I actually also have another meeting to get to.
One question I see is, can you explain adjudication? Adjudication means DCCEC has gone in and made a determination as to the results of the check that came back. So if it came back with no results, they'll go in and mark that state approved. The FBI may not be back yet, so that would put someone into a provisional status. So adjudication just means that DCC's made a decision as to what the status of that person.
Thank you for that. Also, I'm seeing a question about how do you go back and get invoices. Let me give you a quick number. Here's the subscription account phone number. Becky, if you can capture it and throw it in the chat box, that'd be great. The subscription account number is 501-683-5037. and they should be able to get you any of the invoices that you need. Here's a great one that I want to clarify. For Misha, you heard her say that she still is taking hard copies, that she's in transition right now with Central Registry. And for right now, you can still send in hard copies or snail mail, she said. But remember, for criminal background checks, those state criminal and FBI, we are accepting no more paper. It's all through the NIC. That started on October 1st. I think we have answered the rest of these, I think. Let me wrap us up by saying this, you guys. Your very best friend is going to be the background check website, because on the background check website that Justin first showed us, and you can get that, let me talk you through that again. You can Google ARC, A-R-K, DHS. Just put that in your Google search. When you do that, the very first link that pops up, it'll be Arkansas Department of Human Services. You click on that link, and right there on the landing page on the right-hand side is where you'll find a tab that says background checks. That is going to be your very best friend, because everything that we've talked about today, you guys, is right there, step by step on how to do this, the background checks. So it might take you a little minute or two to read through it, but it is there step by step, and it has hot links on it so that it'll take you, for instance, right to the consent form that you need to fill out. Which, by the way, I did see this question. I meant to talk about it. Some of you guys are not required on the placement residential side. You're not required to do FBI. You're just required to do state. You still fill out that one form. You still need to fill it out. Even if you're doing state only, you still need to fill it out, because we have to have the consent that's given us access to look at the record. Otherwise, we shouldn't be looking at anybody's record. We don't have the consent form. So that website is your very first step when you're stuck. Your next step would be to look at either the help tab that Justin showed us on NIC. That would be for system information itself. The people at NIC are great to help. That's going to be for system stuff. If it is more like, does this person need a background check now, or how long is it going to be for this? Those questions need to go to Nora Fawcett and her team. And she put her email in there. And then your fourth point of resource is going to be your licensing specialist. They should be able to help, and if they don't know the answer, they can get you to the right person that can help. All right. And I will, real quick here, I will put my email address in the chat box. You can always email me too, and I will get you to the right spot. Here's the only thing that I ask you guys. Give us a little bit of time. We will get to you. We will. But just give us a little bit of time, because we're working just as fast and furious at this as we can. But we should be able to get you some answers to any questions that you have. So I'm going to throw that in there. And then, Justin, I think I heard you about to say something.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of questions in regards to it taking a long time to go from provisional to approved, or from pending to provisional. Is Nora the appropriate contact for that?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, go, Nora.
Hi, everyone. This is Nora. And please, and I'm going to encourage all of you to please do not wait that long. Once you submit your transaction number and you go to your fingerprints, please let us know immediately. Send us an email. Say, Nora, I've submitted this information. So please, please do not wait that long to reach out to me, because we want to make sure at least, we need to make sure that everyone is approved, because we need good daycares and we need good workers. So please, I encourage you, send me an email. I know a lot of you have said you worried about being busy. That is why we are here. We are here to help you. So please do that. But the only thing that I'm asking is, when you send me an email, please do not copy and paste from the INA system. The NIC system. All I need is just a search ID number and a first name. That is all that I'm asking for. So please, please, please do not copy and paste from the INA system. because it contains perfect information for a hacker to get into. So let's avoid that and just send me search ID and first name. And please do not wait that long. Reach out to me, please.
All right, you guys, I put my email address in there and Nora's email address in the chat box. So if you need anything, you let us know, email us and let us know, and we will get back with you. So this recording will be also posted to the website. So feel free to jump out there and look at it and play it over and over and over, however many times that you need. And in the meantime, you guys, while I've got you all here, let me say something to you. Thank you. Thank you for what you do each and every day. I know your job is incredibly tough. It's incredibly tough on the very best of days. But with the pandemic in play and in the mix, I know that it's that much more tough. So on behalf of the division, I want to say, let's slow our roll for a minute and just say thank you. We really appreciate you and the care that you provide to the children of Arkansas. So thank you so, so much. We're here if you need us. Talk to you later. Be safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Justin.